this is the newspaper review segment, and of course, I have a copy of the Daily Trust with me here. Let's start with the lead story, which says, Kaduna killings, not a mistake, says Gumi. That's an interesting one. Army attacks against Air Force advice, according to sources. Officers grumble over lack of synergy between services. We've learnt our lessons. Our operations remain joint. That's according to the Defense Headquarters. Tinubu vows to punish anyone found culpable. Well, this story is on page 4. We see the pictorial there of the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, who visited Kaduna, of course, on the heels of the Kaduna airstrike at Barrel Diko Teaching Hospital. Just beside him there is the governor of Kaduna State, Senator Obasani, and among others who joined the entourage of the vice president. And at the top of the page, we see excitement as $20 billion Dangote refinery receives crude oil, finally. That story is on page 19. Beside that, we see gunmen kidnap Nasarawa varsity students. Story is on page 23. Also, civil defense yet to produce Media Trust Radio's tower. Shields indicted operatives. Read more on that story on page 3. It's a controversial one. Of course, on the belt, we see more than 80% of Gaza's population displaced. Unfortunate there. Page 5, that story. And below that, we see ASU kicks against inclusion of TED Fund in annual budget. Well, it gave some reasons, some of which I know, but if you want to know about it, you have to read page 6 of the Daily Trust. Shiroro Hydroelectric Power Dam under threat by bandits, according to the GM, page 23. And finally, PDP backtracks from coalition with NNPP, SDP, others. That story is on page 10. The coalition of some of these parties which came together to form the CCPP. Read more on that story. Well, these are some of the story on the front page of the Daily Trust this morning.
All right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper this morning. The major story says Kaduna bombing. The federal government vows to punish the culprits, and ACF demands GOC's removal. The writers there says the federal government promises to unravel causes of bombing, rebuild affected community. The DHQ pleads. Curb accidental bombing with AI. U.S. Arms Center tells the military. ASF demands probe. You find all the stories on page 2. At the top of the page, it says Sanusi carpets NNPCL and doubts dollar remittance after subsidy removal. The ex-emir entitled to his opinion, that's according to NNPCL, and says that they remain focused, says their spokesman. Some foreign airlines may quit Nigeria. The IATA warns the federal government. You find this on page 30. Below there's a pictorial. Beside the pictorial, we have Tinubu, Nupeng, others mourn as Kokori dies at 80. A sad news there. You find this on page 27. I won't surrender my mandate to intimidation. That's according to Fubara. At the bottom there, we see the NJC sacks Oshun judge, dismisses Adeleke's petition against the CJ. Gunmen abduct 10 Nasarawa varsity students. NPA blames concession for $853 million. That's an 1.8 billion naira revenue shortfall. You'll find these stories and more on the Punch newspaper this morning. Now let's move on to this day newspaper. From the top of the page there, it says, finally, Dangote refinery set for production gets first 1 million barrels crude oil feedstock. That's a great story there. Afrexim Bank's president, Orama, emerges Forbes Africa's 2023 Person of the Year. Below the headmaster, it says 2027 PDP, NNPP, SDP, and 4 others in coalition talk. Showing compassion, Shettima leads the federal government's delegation to visit Kaduna bomb victims and promises rebuilding. U.S. seeks responsible deployment of artificial intelligence. DHQ says 81 dead, 71 injured and receiving treatment. The Daily Trust, according to Daily Trust reports, the numbers are more than that. The major story there says, Tinubu, every commitment to clear FX backlog will be fulfilled. Sanusi says the president shouldn't be petroleum minister and insists NNPC must account for dollar inflows. Oppose removal of AMCON levy, declares banking sector regulation a necessity. Chike Obi, era of regulations without consultation shall end. And according to Cardoso, regulation key is sound financial system and reduction of operational excesses. Now, these are some of the stories on this day newspaper this morning. Let's take a look at the Nation's newspaper. From the top of the page, it says, tributes galore for Frank Okori from 1944 to 2023. Oil theft, Tantita security forces arrest another suspicious vessel. NJC rejects petition against Osun CJ at Dikpele Ojo. Wiki defends 15 billion naira vote for VP's residents. Below the headmaster, we have court asks Fubara others not to muzzle River Assembly. Exodus of skilled youths abroad worries the federal government. The lead story says Tinubu vows punishment for error bombing culprits. The federal government to kickstart non-kinetic terrorism battle in Tudunbiri. Government houses, clinics, schools for North states under Fulaku plans rather. And we have ECOWAS court declares Niger junta's request to lift the sanctions. We saw how Niger rather. We saw how the Niger, sanctions affected even the cattle bringing into the country, Nigeria, of course. So that's a good news on that one. We have at the bottom there, 2 kidnapped prospective youth corps members freed. Now, these are some of the stories on the Nation newspaper this morning.
And we now move to the Guardian newspaper. For the lead story, we see female genital mutilation. Government details as painful initiation to womanhood flourishes. Of course, there's some statistics there that you can read up on subsequently if you get a copy of the Guardian newspaper. Besides that, we see one-way local flight hits 200,000 naira ahead of festive travels. That's on the business page. 10 Lafayette University students kidnapped by gunmen. Metro page 8. Also below that, we see how President as Petroleum Minister stalled 11 trillion naira subsidy probe. Beside that, we see a Frexim Bank's President Orame emerges Forbes Africa Person of the Year. Of course, there are other stories. We see Tinubu, Oborevori, Bagi, others mourn Kokori. Also, again, queues resurface at banks as customers battle cash scarcity. And also, more pressure on industries, businesses, over 952 naira to $1 exchange rate for import. These are some of the stories on the Guardian newspaper.
All right, and now we have with us Malam Nuruddin Abdullah, the editor of 21st Century Chronicles, to review the front pages of the national dailies this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Hajiya.
Of course. So let's start with what has been, trending since the early, day of this week. We're talking about Sunday evening to Monday, where, the sad situation happened in Kaduna, Tudunbiri, which cost a lot of lives. I mean, according to Daily Trust, it's about 120, over 120 people confirmed dead, and we're not even talking about the injured ones. And now Gumi is coming, the Islamic cleric, saying that he doesn't believe that it was a mistake. I mean, already there's that thought, in the minds of Nigerians saying, if the first strike was a mistake, what happened to the second one? So what is your take on this accusation?
So I think, there are so many shades of opinions as regard to what actually happened. But first and foremost, for the first time, the military has honor. Yeah, they have honor. And
which was a bit late.
Yeah. They wanted to, as usual, they wanted to, but they honor, they apologize. Something that is one. So we know who is responsible now. And as regards, I don't think it's a deliberate thing per se.
But it was an
maybe rather
intelligence
say,
delivered in error.
pardon,
It was
maybe
intelligence
rather
delivered
say,
in error.
pardon, yeah, due to some recklessness. Yeah, recklessness, I think, rather. Do you understand? This is not the first.
Of course. That's what
From
makes it so
Iran, you
worrying.
remember in Borno?
Yes.
So you question the modus operandi. Yeah, Nigeria is at war with terrorists in the northeast, but I think maybe the rule of engagement over the years should have been reviewed to meet up international best practices. Other countries do commit such errors, even the big guys. Take the US, for instance. I think the last major accidental whatever happened in Afghanistan when the US Air Force attacked a hospital run by Doctors Without Borders. At the beginning, as usual, they were cover up. You know, they said that the Doctors Without Borders did not submit their coordinates to the military. But at the end of the day, and there was an inquiry, there were punishments. But that's what we don't see with the Nigerian situation. And that even called to question. We hope now with Tinubu, you know, with what he said yesterday, that there will be an inquiry, independent inquiry, because the military cannot probe itself. They will do their internal inquiry. But the esprit de corps within the military, you saw a retired colonel who is now a senator, a younger brother to late President Omar Yar'Adua, saying that it is uncalled for. It is reckless to call the sack of the service chiefs because of the killings.
But we see these things happen in the international world where immediately things like that, because of integrity, the GOC, you know, the heads are quick to say, I am apologizing and I am stepping down. That is the only way you can reach to the people that actually suffered this, to show that you felt what really happened was wrong.
The last one we had was that of a border between Benue and Nasarawa State. I think it was almost a cause of some herders, maybe up to about 60 or so, were murdered through the same process. In that case, I don't think there was not even, maybe the outrage was not as loud as what we have now. I think going forward, I'm not saying that for every airstrike, the chief of defense staff or a senior general must superintend it, because, you know, it's an ongoing war. But there are some safety valves to avoid these things. They said, we thought that it was the Air Force. Until recently, many people did not even know that the Nigerian Army has an air wing. Why? This thing came during the Boratei time, when there was a serious intelligence rivalry between the Nigerian Army and the Air Force. Why must Nigerian Army has an air wing? How qualified are their personnel? So maybe we hope that there will be an independent inquiry by the presidency, you understand, so that maybe at the end of the day we'll even find out why do we even need it? Or maybe the Nigerian Army will have now a naval wing, independent of the Nigerian Navy.
So I think this has always been the case, where we see, for example, the Air Force having land components or the Army having an air wings, probably to ease transportation of equipment and machinery from one part to the other.
But not combat.
Not combat.
Not combat. You understand? So maybe we have to unravel most of these things. And what are even the types of equipment are we using? Is it a faulty hardware? Or it is the incompetence of the operators of the drone? So we hope that President Tinubu will unravel all this so that this thing can be addressed once and for all. Who knows what will happen the next?
Indeed.
It may be a political gathering.
I mean, speaking of, what needs to be done in order to make sure things like this never happen again, the U.S. Army are already suggesting, to the Nigerian military, saying that they should use AI instead. Do you think that is something that could favor the Nigerian military?
Not really, because in what they call is it the humanoid is still relevant. Look at what is happening in Gaza, for instance. The failure of just machine intelligence gathering in skills, for instance. Maybe you combine the two. You need to train this guy.
Go ahead.
You need to train this guy. You understand? And safety measures. Because, for instance, if we have human intelligence in Tudunbiri, in Igabi, when their GPRs, whatever, show them that, okay, this is the owner. They need a human intelligence to confirm, is this a gathering of bandits or a gathering of civilians? And even even if you look at some of the, even the footages and what have you, you need a senior person to cross-check. You shouldn't allow everything to be with the guy, the drone operator, deciding for himself. So when you do that, maybe the AI can be deployed, but even we saw what happened with Mossad. They rely so much on machine intelligence without having people on ground. And look at what happened with the Hamas and what have you. So it's a mix. It should be a mixed grill. But more importantly, I'm not saying, let's say, let me give you a simple example. During the operation by the American forces, the Navy SEALs, to kill Osama bin Laden, for instance, what happened? President Obama watched it live to show you how sensitive that is, because you are entering a Muslim-dominated country, Pakistan, in a civilian-dominated. So any mistake will generate an international outrage. You understand? So that was what, and at any given time when those two crafts were going, the president was there, the Secretary of Defense was there, and they can call off that operation at any minute if there is a mistake. That is what we should do. We hope that the president will, the army should not prop itself. There should be an independent inquiry. Do we even need the army? Does it even need an air wing?
In the first place.
In the first place.
So talking about that, there's also saying that dividers on Daily Trust saying officers also, grumble over lack of synergy between the services, because at the end of the day, they're all the military encompassing on security matters. So that is also something to look at. But it's really sad, what is going on. But let's divert from this sad situation to also another situation happening in Shiroro hydroelectric power dam under attack, where they say that the bandits, of course, are coming for that place. I mean, one of the things that we keep pushing on is better power supply, but this is another threat on what this insecurity in the country can cause.
Okay, now Shiroro. You remember Zingiro has been completed, but it cannot pick up because of bandits. The last time was it 34 soldiers, security forces were murdered by bandits. So this synergy is key to the success, to the anti-banditry, anti-Boko Haram war. And you need a very strong political leader to achieve that. We saw what happened, even paramilitary in DSS is fighting EFCC and vice versa. You understand? Whereas we should look at the whole thing as a whole. The essence is to serve Nigeria well. So I think maybe there should be a direct order, maybe to the head of these agencies, that this thing can no longer be tolerated. Look at what is happening in Shiroro. Now we are saying that we have achieved, is it 5,000 mega generated. Now, if Shiroro is attacked, God forbid, we're being invaded, what happened?
Now back to where we started.
So a lot need to be done. A lot need. At the beginning of the Boko Haram war, that was Nigeria suffered. We lost so many gallant officers because of the rivalry between the Nigerian army, between the Nigerian Air Force. People are just the generals then, they were just crazy about taking credit. I remember some of them were even seen in local musicians were even singing for them as if they are contesting elections. And there was an attack, is it the Bagaro, I remember. That issue of our soldiers were sent. But the agreement was that the Air Force will do what they call the sorties. They will do a lot of bombardment while the troops moved in. The bombardment was called off, and the troops on ground were not told. They were slaughtered like chickens. Just because of some ego of some two Abuja-based generals. And the major problem, there is no consequence. Nobody was punished. We just, okay, it's another bad episode. We closed the chapter and we moved on. That is why what happened in Kaduna now should be thoroughly investigated. Whoever is responsible should be dealt with.
Indeed.
And even what are those things that create a fatal ground for some of these things to happen? Fix them. When we do that, I think maybe we should be able to be more aggressive in the fight against banditry and
insurgency.
Yes. So, let's leave banditry for a moment. Let's take a look at this story on the front page, of course, on the Daily Trust as well. Excitement as $20 billion Dangote refinery receives crude oil. So it's also replicated on some other papers. I think the Tribune, or the Guardian rather, has that story where it says Dangote refinery receives first batch of 1 million barrels.
Crude, yeah.
I think you should be happy.
Indeed. The excitement starts with you.
Yes, very good development. Nigerians are employed there. Yeah, he will pay tax. The staff equally will pay tax. And we hope that the product now will be available. But, it's not yet the huru.
I've been waiting for you to say that. I've actually been waiting.
No, I don't want to be looked as a pessimist. But okay. the clear thing is that won't make. We are buying fuel now every 520, 530. When you go out of Abuja, you buy up to 570, 580. Some even 600. But Dangote refinery will not bring it down to 400. That's the reality.
But that's what people are thinking.
No.
That's what people are hoping.
No.
But this is one.
Don't hope for what is not. The facts does not support.
But this is
1
million barrels, right? This is 1 million barrels per day. Hopefully,
yes.
If it goes well.
Yes.
So, and we have, I think, a monthly quota of it reduced to around 45 million, right?
Yeah.
With the coming in of the fuel subsidy. So, which means if the Dangote refinery is getting 1 million barrels per day, let's say in a work week of 5 days, at the end of the month, it should have 20 million barrels.
I like this again. Dangote's market is...
Other things being equal.
Dangote is not targeting Nigeria. He will sell his product in dollars. He's operating in a free trade zone.
I thought there was an agreement between Dangote.
Which agreement? It's purely business. He collected banks' money to do that.
So what's
it's not Kaduna refinery. It's not Port Harcourt or Wari.
Selling to us.
We will buy like any other customer. He has Africa to service. He has the international community to service.
But he's buying crude from us. There's supposed to be some obligation that he has to fulfill.
No.
Else, if the nation decide not to sell it to him, then he would have to import crude from elsewhere, right?
Well, I think
he has a port. Who tell you that he's buying crude only from Nigeria?
Well,
how many barrels?
There's that factor.
You can get it from Angola.
There's that factor. But what we're asking is, Even if it doesn't happen on the short term, what about the medium and the long term? There has to be some impact.
It will change the ecosystem. It will impact the ecosystem. But don't be like a politician. Don't tell Nigerians what is not there. The truth is, Minister Ibn Melekari said it. The then Minister of Finance, when this thing started, Mrs. Ahmed said it. So, no, Dangote refinery will not bring down he will sell in dollars. Exchange rate. I think the only thing is this. You know, all this, the logistics, the trucking, the cost of the trucking maybe will reduce. But he has no any obligation to sell his product only to Nigerians. He will service the international community.
By all means, we are not saying that Dangote shouldn't service the entire international community, but what we are saying is that his refinery is domiciled in Nigeria. At the
free trade zone. Free trade zone.
Sorry, yes, that is true. That is true. That is true. It is located in a free trade zone. However, the closest market that he has right now is Nigeria.
Yes.
So it wouldn't be wrong if a large quota or a large portion of his refined products find its way into the Nigerian market.
When you say, I don't want to believe that, you know, yeah, maybe we have to do some computations. You know, if you look at, he has his own independent seaports. From there to Ghana, to all other African countries.
So he can
maybe
what
is a fact here is, you know, we are the largest market.
And don't forget, the NNPCL are also shareholders.
Some insignificant, is it 20%?
Okay, we'll agree that you are being pessimistic right now.
Now he is being pessimistic.
So the issue is simple. We need more Dangotes. Maybe by the time that all these refineries are auctioned, okay, when is the Patako refinery coming up?
Well, they said,
it's not embarrassing.
The year has not ended yet.
See,
in all fairness, we should allow the year to end. They gave us an end of the year deadline.
Is it not embarrassing for government officials to be waiting for an individual
to come and save
to save the country? Nigeria, for that matter.
It is a huge expectation. So what Malam Nura is saying right now is that Nigerians should just sit down and keep praying, because it's not time yet to start celebrating, even though there is the excitement of what Dangote refinery would be bringing. But then, yes, we just have to wait for the NNPCL and the federal government to do the needful in order to save Nigeria. Well, thank you so much, Malam Nuruddin Abdullah. I mean, because of time constraints, of course, we have to stop here. So we appreciate you coming out to review the front pages of the national dailies, editor of 21st Century. Thank you.
Thank you. You're most welcome.